Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Eloisa Ramos, and we are here today to study A Course in Miracles. And we're doing the text, and I'm here with Sonia.
Hi.
And Connie and Teresa.
Hi.
Hi, so we're all studying this together. And we left off on chapter 1, and it's section 7, Distortions of Miracle Impulses. And depending on which book you have, it could be page 15. That's the third edition, 2007. But it could be a different page if you have a different edition. Okay, so let's see. I'll just start with paragraph 1. Your distorted perceptions produce a dense cover over miracle impulses, making it hard for them to reach your own awareness. The confusion of miracle impulses with physical impulses is a major perceptual distortion. Physical impulses are misdirected miracle impulses. All real pleasure comes from doing God's will. This is because not doing it is a denial of self with a capital S. So denial of self results in illusions, while correction of the error brings release from it. Do not deceive yourself into believing that you can relate in peace to God or to your brothers with anything external. Okay. It's actually kind of interesting because I was just clearing that. It's just working on something. So that has to do with the belief.
Example.
Yes, it has. Yeah, it has to do with the idea of the belief in magic also. Okay. Yes. So let's just take line by line, and I'll see if I can give you an example here. So your distorted perceptions produce a dense cover over miracle impulses, making it hard for them to reach your own awareness. Okay, so what the Course says about miracles is that they are normal and everyday. And so it's not that they are not available, they're available, they're normal and everyday, but we are not aware of them. And this is what it's saying here, that is the dense cover that keeps us from being aware. And it's our distorted perceptions. Okay, so what's a distorted perception? In any ideas? A distorted perception? So they're interpretations. So for example, there's a lot of distorted perceptions around love, around what love is. Okay, for some people, love is physical affection. Okay, and they may very easily misinterpret someone being physically affectionate with them, and they think, oh, this person really loves me. Okay, or if, for example, in a marriage, if that physical affection wanes off, then people may think, oh, we're not in love anymore, right? So they are misinterpreting the idea of love as something that is between bodies, a physical attraction, sexual arousal, things like that. Okay. So the idea here is that everything in the world is a symbol, and symbols represent things. Okay, they're not, so a symbol is like a sign in the road. You see the sign, and it's giving you information on which way to go. It's giving you guidance, okay? But the sign itself is not the guidance itself. Let's see. It's a representation of the meaning. So it's not the meaning itself. It's a little bit like when you have a filing cabinet and you file all of your receipts for your tax end of year documents that you have to file, okay? Your reports. You label all of your files and you start putting papers in there according to the category of your expenses. Okay, whatever. This is for auto expense. This is for home expense. This is for business expense, ... Okay, well, if you were to go and change all the labels to the folders, what you have done is you have mislabeled the content of the folder. That's what a distorted perception is. Okay, we go in and we mislabel everything, and then we think by reading the label that what's inside there, is going to be my receipts for my car, but they're really my receipts for my home expenses. So the content inside the folder hasn't changed just because I switched the labels. So I can call the folder anything I want, but it has not changed what's the content of it. And so that's the same with us. Okay, I can say things about myself, I can say things about other people, and I can label them, I can judge them, I can say, oh, I can look at them and say, and have stereotypes, and I can look at them and discriminate based on my ideas of what I think is the content, because I'm just basing those ideas on the labels, and I'm going to be wrong because of that. Okay, because I don't really know the person unless I know the content. And if I just go by the labels, I'm going to misperceive them. I'm going to have a distorted point of view of them. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, distorted perception. So for example, what I did with my new neighbor when they first moved across the street is I didn't go up and greet them and meet them. The first thing I did was look at the stuff they were unloading from the moving truck, and I looked at their garage and I could see what they had, and I said, oh, they have a boat. Oh, they must be, kind of family adventure oriented. So I start making up all these ideas about who I think my neighbors are based on what they own, the things that they own. Okay. And so that's what this means by distorted perception. We don't take the time to know the person. We just assume things about them. Okay. And so when we do that, we are making up stories, and let's see, and that's illusion. Making up stories is just illusion. Okay, now if I do that, for example, with maybe I'm a young person, and I am looking for someone to get to know and to have a relationship with, and maybe find someone that's going to be a life partner. Maybe I want to get married. Okay. And so I go out and meet people. Maybe I go to, wherever you go to meet people nowadays. Okay. And I begin looking at different people, and I begin to make assumptions about the person without actually getting to know them. Okay. Or I talk to them for a little bit, and based on the little bit that they say, I make all kinds of assumptions. Okay. And so the person that I'm really seeing, I'm not really seeing them. I'm seeing what I think they are based on my own past experiences, all of that stuff. Okay. And so all of that stuff is this dense cover, okay, that interferes from that true connection between us, which is love, because that's what we really are. We're all created like God, and God is love. Okay. And so we distort that. And so we make this we put this dense cover over what is a miracle impulse. And a miracle is really just being able to see the truth, okay, of what that person is, which is just love. And then relating to them in that way, in a loving way, which is what we are. So, so number 2 says the confusion of miracle impulses with physical impulses is a major perceptual distortion. So what ends up happening is that we end up relating to people based on our physical needs, on what we think that that person as a body, as an object, can be used for. Well, this person, can I use this person to have fun with? Can I use this person to experience pleasure with? Can I use this person for to pass the time? Maybe I get bored, I want to go out. So it's all about trying to meet my needs and my feelings of lack and loneliness and insecurities with this other person, or maybe it's not even a person. Maybe it's a substance, maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's a drug, maybe it's entertainment, maybe it's video games, maybe it's going to the movies, whatever it is. So we're taking what we see in the world and using it as a we're using it as if they were an object to satisfy our needs.
So it's always form versus content.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why number 3 says physical impulses are misdirected miracle impulses. Because we have a creative impulse. We are created and we have creative power. But the physical impulse is confused. And that's why we use we call sexual intercourse, we call that making love, and we call procreation of children, we call that creation, or we call, for example, the arts, writing stories or painting, we call that creativity. Okay, so we all have this impulse to create, okay, but we're misusing it because what we create is not in the likeness of our true self, because we're not extending the love, the truth that is eternal, that is what we are. Maybe we're a really inventive genius, and we come up with all these new gadgets, and we come up with self-driving cars. I mean, we we try to make life more convenient and more comfortable for the self that is the body, you know, or and so all these major industries are based around doing that, because that's what we consume. Um, and because we think that that's what we are, and that we have these needs that need to be satisfied, that kind of a thing. And so so 4 is all real pleasure comes from doing God's will. Okay, so we're all looking, we're seeking, okay, to quote unquote satisfy whatever that shows up, like whether it's feeling of incompletion, a feeling of emptiness, a feeling of lack, a feeling of, I'm not enough. And so we're trying to find that in the world. And we're trying to do it in different ways. And we're looking in the wrong place. So that's not the will of God. So the will of God is for us to know the truth, that we are created whole and complete without lack. And that's why to do God's will is real pleasure, because there's no sense of lack. In worldly pleasure, it's a temporary satisfaction because it's coming from a place of neediness and lack. And as soon as we have that temporary pleasure and satisfaction, then it lasts for a little while, but then we're back to square one again. And then we have to go and start, trying to get something to feel better. So that's kind of what I was working on this morning, because we're taking what are physical things, bodies, as instruments, okay, and it can be an instrument for miracles, for healing, for extending love, or it can be an instrument for the miscreation of an identity that is a self, that is an ego, an individual persona that is in a body that needs to function and be self-sufficient as a limited entity. So it can't be self-sufficient. And therefore it's going to be satisfied and dissatisfied. It's going to be feeling good and then feeling bad. It's going to be in an experience of duality, where there's no stability, where there's uncertainty and fear and all of that. Okay, so number 5 is this is because not doing it is a denial of self. Yes. So to pursue what the world offers us as a substitute for the truth is to deny our true self as we were created, whole and complete, spirit, eternal, and basically without lack. And so that's why you were mentioning today's lessons, Connie. Today's lesson is that I can change the thoughts that hurt. Okay. Because the thoughts that deny the truth are going to be painful. And then, rather than really looking at that and seeing the error, oh, I'm misidentifying myself, I try to cover it up and I pursue pleasure to balance the pain, to undo the pain, to escape the pain. But I don't question the pain. See, I don't go to what the lesson's saying and recognize, oh, wait a minute, the cause of my pain is my thoughts. And these thoughts are not true because they're not representing what I truly am as God created me. And so number 6 says, denial of the self with a capital S results in illusions. And that's what we do. We make up a self that we want to believe we are as a body, as an ego, and we want to present a self-image to the world that is, successful, that is, that hides a lot of the imperfections of that self. And because we're not questioning the assumption that the little self is the true self. We just assume that we were made imperfect. And so the correction of that error brings the release from illusions. And that's the right mind. That's the Holy Spirit that brings the correction, that knows the truth about what we are, that we're still as God created us and we haven't changed. So 7, do not deceive yourself into believing that you can relate in peace to God or to your brothers with anything external. Yeah, so our true connection with our brothers is not through like what we have. Like, for example, some people believe like, oh, if, that women will be, so if I'm a man, I might believe that women will be attracted to me if I drive an expensive car or if I have a sports car, So I really, really want a sports car, or if I have a lot of money, people will admire me, and I will have followers, and I won't feel lonely because there'll be people around me all the time. Or maybe it's fame. Okay, but but this is see, I am believing that I can relate to my brothers with external things. So in other words, I can say, I can meet someone and we start talking, and they say, oh, well, I have kids. I have 4 kids. And I'm like, oh, really? So do I, and and then they say, yes. And, my parents, well, they were born in Mexico. And I'm like, oh, really? Well, so were mine, And so we start going down the list, and we have all these things in common. So now I'm really relating to this person based on, our ancestors, based on the identity with being a mother, So I'm relating to people based on external things. And I'm thinking that that's what I am. I am the roles that I play. I am my past, my history. And that's how I'm relating to them. And I'm not recognizing that we're the same, that we are children of God. And so even when I'm relating to them, there's separation there because I'm not recognizing the content. I'm just looking at the symbols.
Or in seeing the boat across the street, you could think, oh, that could be fun to get to know them and go on a boat ride.
Exactly. Exactly. It's about, oh, what don't I have that they have that I can get from them?
Oh my gosh.
So the relationship becomes kind of an exchange, kind of like a business transaction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Very shallow and empty.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's fun for a while, but you know,
yeah.
but you know, hey, you know, next month another family moves in and they have a bigger boat. So
Oh,
much for that relationship. Yeah. So that's the ego, you know. We follow the ego, that's where we go. Anyway, okay, so we can go to the next one if you guys are ready.
Mhm. I guess it's my turn.
Mhm.
Okay, 2. Child of God, you were created to create the good, the beautiful, and the holy. Do not forget this. The love of God, for a little while, must still be expressed through one body to another, because vision is still so dim. You can use your body best to help you enlarge your perception so you can achieve real vision, of which the physical eye is incapable. Learning to do this is the body's only true usefulness.
Mhm. Yeah. So, okay, so the physical eye is the eye that looks at the symbols. It's the one that looks at the boat. You know, and then it looks, oh, and those neighbors have a bigger boat. Okay, so that's the physical eye. Um, and so we want to be able to enlarge our perception to achieve real vision, which means that we see past we see past the labels, we see past the boats, and we relate to people um, out of the truth of what we are, which is fundamentally the same. You know, um, we are all created to create the good, the beautiful, and the holy, and that's like the holy instant. We are created to experience that and to share that. Um, and so it's not about what we actually do, but it's about the purpose with which we do things. Let's see. So even when we are trying to be helpful, okay, it's 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 the it's the purpose. Is the purpose just, you know, unconditional love, or, you know, am I doing you a favor and tomorrow I expect you to pay back that favor, you know, um, making it kind of a relationship where it's an obligation. Well, you know, I raised you as my child. You better take care of me when you're old, that kind of a thing. um, so, and so, you know, it recognizes that while for a little while we must you know, the love of God must still be expressed through one body to another because vision is still so dim. So there's nothing wrong with expressing love from one body to another. Okay, that's fine. Um, but what it's saying is that it's a very narrow, um, it's a very small and narrow way of looking. Um, and we won't be able to see the wholeness of the oneness of creation with the body's eyes that way.
Hmm.
But we can learn. Connie.
Oh, I was just thinking of a situation I heard about last week. A friend of a friend who's she's close to 40 and suddenly wants to have a child because she wants someone to take care of her in later life. And
Yes.
so she's going through all this in vitro kind of stuff. And I just thought, wow. And I said to the woman, that seems like an awfully self-centered way for having a child. Anyway, I just thought, good grief, the extent people go to get their needs met, but not thinking about the real consequences.
Yeah, but you could say that pretty much about anybody that has a child because I mean, at least she's conscious about it.
Yeah, that's true. She said, I need someone to take care of me.
I would say that when I had children, it was all unconscious, so it was just, I didn't even question it. I mean, who knows why I had my children,
Well, you may have had a holy purpose in mind.
Well, I know that
Love.
I know that it's in my script, and I have at some point I realized, okay, this can be used for the healing of my mind. Anything can be used for the healing of my mind. Okay. But I have to admit that when I really think back about it, I'm like, oh my God, why didn't I even get married? I was not in my right mind. Okay. My husband doesn't like to hear that, but
Yeah, I bet.
but if I'm really, really honest, it was all unconscious stuff. It was, who knows? It was just that it was time for me to get married, and this was the person, right place, right time.
Well, Sonia, how do you feel about
Oh,
this
I learned from
conversation?
it. No. I totally am on board with her because I don't want to get married. I don't want kids. Out of the question, out of the picture. I'm good.
Well, those things can be okay.
Oh yeah, no,
yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying they're bad, but for me, I've just never been attracted to it.
All
Uh,
right.
yeah.
Anyway.
So what I'm saying is that, so even if we decide like this, friend of a friend, okay, there's no guarantee that that child is going to hang around to take care of you. I mean,
Yeah.
once you're that unable to take care of yourself, I mean, they're going to decide for you, and if they're not in a position to really be there 24/7 for you. And it's not that easy. I have to tell you, I did take care of my mother for a few years, and it's the hardest, just like taking care of children. I have to tell you, it's the hardest job there is. And it's harder than going to college at Stanford, let me tell you. You go in there completely unprepared. Nobody prepares you, for being a parent. Who takes classes for being a parent? Nobody. There's nothing like that in school. So I think that if it's, I mean, that's just how I decided that, I was going to learn the lessons I needed to learn, which is fine. But it hasn't been easy. Okay. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm saying that, I must have been ready to take on that, that challenge. So it works out, but the miscreation, so that's the distortion, that's a dense cover, and all of that needs healing. So we can use, like number 5 says, we can use the body, we can use everything in this world as a way to learn what is truly useful. And the body is a tool for, it's an instrument of communication, and we can use it to learn the truth about what we are, and practice love, and practice forgiveness, and practice compassion and understanding, and choose those thoughts rather than the thoughts of fear, and and holding on to grievances, and fundamentally they're ideas about a self that is going to be very limited, vulnerable, and die as a body. So there's a lot of suffering in there when we hold on to those ideas. Yeah. And we were not created for that. So it's right there, the first line in the second paragraph. Child of God, you were created to create the good, the beautiful, and the holy. So we were not created to make the fearful, the painful, and the dying. That's not what we were created for.
It says, do not forget this right after.
Yes.
I know. I wrote that down. That's a beautiful, beautiful line. You're created to create the good, beautiful, and holy. It's just, yeah, don't forget it. I've got that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, number 3.
Oh, this is a big paragraph. Okay. Fantasy is a distorted form of vision. Fantasies of any kind are distortions because they always involve twisting perception into unreality. Actions that stem from distortions are literally the reactions of those who know not what they do. Fantasy is an attempt to control reality according to false needs. Twist reality in any way, and you are perceiving destructively. Fantasies are a means of making false associations and attempting to obtain pleasure from them. But although you can perceive false associations, you can never make them real except to yourself. You believe in what you make. If you offer miracles, you will be equally strong in your belief in them. The strength of your conviction will then sustain the belief of the miracle receiver. Fantasies become totally unnecessary as the holy, satisfying nature of reality becomes apparent to both giver and receiver. Reality is, quote unquote, lost through usurpation, which produces tyranny. As long as a single, quote unquote, slave remains to walk the earth, your release is not complete. Complete restoration of the sonship is the only goal of the miracle-minded.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So yeah, there's a lot there. Okay, so let's just start with the first line. Fantasy is a distorted form of vision. Okay, so that's pretty clear, right? Yeah, because vision is true perception. Okay, so fantasies of any kind are distortions because they always involve twisting perception into unreality. Okay, so when we think about the way things are, we think of that as the perception of reality. Okay, and if we twist that, if we let's see, if we interpret that, let me see, let me see if I have an example. Okay, so say I'm in a relationship and in that relationship, the way things are is not satisfactory for me. Okay, maybe I have needs that are not being met. Okay, and because of that, I start making up stories like, oh, well, maybe my partner is cheating on me, you know, maybe my partner is not attracted to me anymore, you know. So I start going into all these fantasies of what because what I'm sensing is that, oh, our relationship is not the way it used to be. And now that I believe that our relationship has changed and that there's something wrong, my mind starts making up ideas of, well, what could be wrong? You know, so I start going into fantasy and I start keeping an eye on my partner and I start noticing who they talk to and whether they come home late. And so I start imagining things about my partner that is not true. Okay, but I'm feeling really insecure about it. And in all of that, so I'm upset, but I'm upset not for the reason I think. Okay, so maybe unconsciously, I'm really looking in the mirror and I'm saying, oh my goodness, look at me. I've got gray hair, got wrinkles, you know, I've gained weight. Oh my God, you know, I don't look the same. I'm not as attractive, you know, body. And so I'm the one that's feeling like, oh, my husband's not going to be attracted to me anymore. Okay. But it's really sort of a projection of how I'm feeling about myself. And so, so I'm twisting, I'm making up stories, and so then I'm taking actions now. Now I'm beginning to question him, like, where were you? You know, you didn't get here on time. Okay, so actions that stem from distortions are literally the reactions of those who know not what they do. Okay, because I'm literally in a fantasy world and that's what's driving my actions. And number 4 says fantasy is an attempt to control reality according to false needs. Okay, so so my attempt to control him, to know where he is, to you know, check on his phone for texts, you know, so stuff like that is my need to reassure myself, okay, that he still loves me, okay, because I think I'm a body and I think I am now not as beautiful as I was, you know, before. And so number 5, twist reality in any way and you are perceiving destructively. So now that I've twisted reality, I'm actually perceiving destructively and my actions are actually going to be harmful to my relationship. Okay, because my husband's going to say, what are you talking about? You know, and, you know, and stop, you know, being so nosy, stop, you know, calling me at all hours at work and stop, you know. So he's going to start getting annoyed. Okay. And so 6, fantasies are a means of making false associations and attempting to obtain pleasure from them. So what fantasy does is it tries to make conclusions, okay, from 2 things that happen at the same time, which is associations. Okay, so I make up a fantasy and I think, oh my gosh, he's having an affair with his secretary. Okay, and so then I start saying, okay, So let's see. So Saturday, he said he was going here. Okay. And I called and nobody had seen him there. Okay. And and um, and that same Saturday, I have a friend who knows the secretary, and the secretary wasn't at home. So because she wasn't at home and because I called and he wasn't, nobody knew that he was there, by association, they had to be together, you know? So and I'm right. I'm right. I just know it. I just know it. I have a gut feeling, that I'm right. And so we can obtain pleasure by making up fantasies that are actually hurtful, but make us right. So that's the kind of, like the today's lesson is I can choose thoughts that are not hurtful. In this case, I am choosing thoughts that are hurtful just so that I can prove that my fantasies are right. So I would rather be right than happy.
That's a whole lot of messed up stuff.
Yeah, but we do that. The mind,
I
we
know,
do
I
that a
know.
lot.
It's
So,
crazy.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I've done it.
oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I've done it. Yeah.
Yep.
Boy,
yeah.
but to hear you, put it out there so succinctly really is helpful.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so 7. So, but although you can perceive false associations, you can never make them real except to yourself. And that's literally what, insanity is, right? Because it's our own little world and nobody shares in it. but we are so sure that we're right. Okay, so yeah, I remember I put this example in the book that I wrote. We were watching the Toy Story, I think it's Toy Story 2 movie, and there was just one little part there where the mother was putting the toys, her son's toys, one box for the attic and one box to donate. Okay. And his little friend Woody, I could have sworn, well, let's see, one box was he was going to take it to college. And so I could have sworn that Woody went to the attic or something like that. And then my husband goes, no, it didn't go in there. And I go, oh yeah, it did. I'm sure I can still see the picture, you know. So I made him rewind the movie and I was wrong.
Oh, God.
And there was another time I was at the at the department store and a lady was buying some shoes. Actually, she was returning some shoes in front of me and I was waiting. And she's like, oh, and the sales lady says, okay, and do you have the receipt? And she said, oh, I already gave it to you. And the sales lady says, no, you didn't give it to me. She goes, yes, I did. I remember handing it to you. And she's like, no, no, I'm sorry. You didn't hand it to me. And she kept insisting that she really, really did. But she hadn't. It was still in her purse, you know? So there's these things that we're just so, it's about believing. I would rather believe my own imaginings than the person right in front of me because I trust my own imaginings more than I trust my brother. you know. And so, yeah, I mean, we really learn where our loyalty is. Okay, it's to fantasy many, many, many times. See, number 8, and this is why, because it says you believe in what you make. See,
Mhm.
that's a very let's see, I learned that back in college too, that, ideas, if they come from somebody else, they're going to support them. So in other words, if you're trying to sell your idea, you want to make it so that it actually comes from them, and then they will support it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because of this, you believe in what you make. So if you offer miracles, you will be equally strong in your belief in them. So it's really about choosing the Holy Spirit and not the ego, and trusting that despite all my imaginings, okay, it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to be wrong, and to not be afraid, to trust that people are loving, and that that's what we are, that that's what God is. So that we can offer miracles. And in that strength, if we have that strength as conviction, then that will also sustain the belief of the miracle in the receiver. So the strength of our own conviction in the truth will sustain the person that is the receiver of the miracle, because it works the other way too. If you can also get a bunch of people who are fantasizing, and they will feed off of each other's fantasy.
Mhm.
And then you have a crazy mob. Okay. but it works the other way too. So the strength of our conviction, either in fantasy or in reality, either in the grievance, the vengeance, the hate, the fear, or the miracle, the love, the forgiveness, the joy, the peace. So, and 11 says, fantasies become totally unnecessary as the wholly satisfying nature of reality becomes apparent to both giver and receiver. And so that's the wonderful thing about the miracle, is that it's an experience where reality is perfectly fine just the way it is. You don't have to, when you accept yourself just as you are, when you accept your children just as they are, without judgment, without condition, without trying to control what they do, that kind of thing. That little miracle has a very satisfying, what's the word? It's an experience of wholeness, of not lacking anything. And the nature, the satisfying nature of it is what is the what is the motivator for practicing the forgiveness more and more and more. Yes, and so 12 says reality is quote unquote lost through usurpation, which produces tyranny. So fantasies can usurp our creative power. And so the reality of our nature, of our holy, beautiful loving nature can be quote unquote lost. The awareness of it can be lost because we allow the fantasies, we give power to the fantasies. So it's not so much that the fantasies have power and that they usurp the power of reality. It's that we give them the throne because we don't occupy it. It's as if we abdicate the power of the truth of being children of God to fantasy. And so we let fantasy then be kind of like a tyrant. We let like, oh, like what I do become dictated by how I feel, so so I'm not able to so I literally don't have a will anymore because I've abdicated it. And now I am going to maybe not be able to consistently hold down a job because I have an addiction to alcohol, and I wake up and I didn't wake up on time to get to work, I or maybe it's drugs, or maybe it's sex or whatever the addiction is. But it, if it becomes severe enough, it starts interfering with the day-to-day functioning. And that's why it's using the word slave here. 13, as long as a single quote unquote slave remains to walk the earth, your release is not complete. So as long as we give way to fantasies and prefer fantasies over reality, we're going to believe that we're not good enough, and we're going to suffer, and we're going to be in pain, and we're going to look for ways to minimize and hide and repress that pain. And we're not going to be happy. And because it's oneself, as long as a single slave, person is not aware of their divinity, of their divine true nature, of their inherent freedom as spirit, then my release is not wholly complete. And so that's why we work, because we're not just healing our individual personal mind, we're actually part of the healing of the collective mind. And 14 says, complete restoration of the sonship is the only goal of the miracle minded. That's kind of what I was just saying. That the sonship is one creation. And so the restoration of the recognition that we are all just one creation is why we play our part in the atonement, and why we do that willingly and lovingly. Yeah. Okay. All
Number
right.
4, this is a course in mind training. All learning involves attention and study at some level. Some of the later parts of the course rest too heavily on these earlier sections not to require their careful study. You will also need them for preparation. Without this, you may become much too fearful of what is to come to make constructive use of it. However, as you study these earlier sections, you'll begin to see some of the implications that will be amplified later on.
Mm-hmm. So it's talking about these first few chapters, I would say up to chapter 5 or so. And so it really puts a lot of emphasis um, on these sections because they really, really require careful study. And I do remember that I took this seriously when I first started the Course in Miracles, because the first few chapters kind of really lays out the mind training and kind of what the mind needs to realize to be able to undo the belief in separation and fear, because I think it's in the first 4 chapters where it talks about fear as the doing of our mind, and so it's our responsibility to undo it because we made it. And so let's see. Number five says, without this, you may become much too fearful of what is to come to make constructive use of it. So the first few chapters are really foundational. Yeah, and it says, as you study these earlier sections, you will begin to see some of the implications that will be amplified later on. Let's see, what was something else that was in those chapters? It had to do with it's pretty clear about, what the role of the miracle worker is, and about the only thing we have to do is accept the atonement for ourselves. So the work is really to come to the place where we practice the lessons and practice the forgiveness so that we can recognize that through the miracle, we recognize that the separation never happened. Because each little miracle, each little experience of a holy instant connects us to that truth, to the reality that everything else that is not loving is changing and is not eternal, and therefore it's not real. Because in the moment that we experience that holy instant, we recognize the self is not separate from anyone, and it lacks nothing. It's whole, it's complete. So it's it's an experience that will carry us through a lot of the what's the word, the turmoil that the thinking undergoes, because it has to be turned upside down to be right side up, because it's upside down and we think it's right side up. So now it has to do a backflip. And that can be really unsettling for a while. Yeah, so.
Do you want me to read 5 also?
Sure.
A solid foundation is necessary because of the confusion between fear and awe, to which I have already referred and which is often made. I have said that awe is inappropriate in connection with the sons of God, because you should not experience awe in the presence of your equals. However, it is also emphasized that awe is proper in the presence of your Creator. I have been careful to clarify my role in the atonement without either over or understating it. I am also trying to do the same with yours. I have stressed that awe is not an appropriate reaction to me because of our inherent equality. Some of the later steps in this course, however, involve a more direct approach to God Himself. It would be unwise to start on these steps without careful preparation, or awe will be confused with fear, and the experience will be more traumatic than beatific. Healing is of God in the end. The means are being carefully explained to you. Revelation may occasionally reveal the end to you, but to reach it, the means are needed.
Okay. Okay. So fear and awe are often confused, and I can think of that because of the God of the Old Testament, who seemed to be both fearful and kind of like awe-inspiring, kind of like so powerful, but it's really good to understand that difference. Okay, because what we fear, we tend to see as bigger than us, or we wouldn't be afraid of it. Okay, and when we're at awe of something, we are kind of, let's see, so creation is equal. All of creation is equal. That's why Jesus is saying here that, number 5, I am also trying to do the same with yours. He's saying that, let's see, that awe is not proper in the presence of a brother, but only of your creator, because there's no what's the word, the Father and the Son are the Son, the created is in the likeness of God. Okay, but it's not, but the sonship is not the Father. So that's why the awe is there, because it's the recognition that, okay, I am standing in the presence of my creator. Okay, so it's a recognition that I am the created and God is the creator, and everything that I am comes from God. And so for that, I owe everything to God, in this, not in the sense that I'm a slave to God, but in the sense that everything that I am was given to me by God. And if it wasn't for God, then I would not have existence. I would not have reality. I would not have life. And so for that reason, I cannot make the Son the Father. That's the only distinction. And it's not a real distinction of inequality, because I share in everything that God is. So I am created, but I can also create like God, because God created me by extension. And so fear is one of inequality between the Father and the Son. Okay, so between higher authority and me that has to follow authority. So fear is where I believe that there is a difference in power and that I'm in a disadvantage. And that's why I am fearful, because I can be attacked. And so if I'm afraid of God, I am believing that God is, one, more powerful than me. However, I can still sin against God and upset God. Okay, so it's making God into an image of a worldly authority, like a parent. Like I can be really afraid of my father and my mother, because if I misbehave, they punish me. Okay, but at the same time, they provide everything for me. So they give me food, they give me shelter, they give me clothing, they give me comfort, they give me, things that I can play with and have fun with. So they provide everything for me. Okay, but I have to obey them. And if I don't obey them and they punish me, then I'm going to be afraid. I'm going to be afraid of them. And that's how I may end up seeing worldly authority too. Okay. But the God that created life is not the it's not what I think worldly authority is. I am superimposing my idea of worldly authority onto God, and that's why I'm afraid of God. Because worldly authority is conditional love. And as much as parents want to be unconditionally loving with their children, it's imperfect. Because it's really hard to not be invested in what your children do, how they behave, how they do in school, how they show up in society, whether they're successful, whether they're, they end up in jail, whether they end up homeless, whatever. It's the self-image. So all of that gets invested because the parent believes that I made that child and I was responsible for raising that child. So it says something about me. Okay, so that's there's conditional a conditional exchange there, but God, the creator of all, is not creates with unconditional love. So and so that's why the awe is only appropriate for revelation, which is direct communication with our source God, and not appropriate with the sons of God. Because we're equals. Even Jesus Christ is an equal, even though a lot of times religion wants to say that no, Jesus, I've heard people say, well, no, I'm not the same as Jesus. Jesus was divine and I'm not divine. He was perfect and I'm not perfect. So they're not accepting the equality of the sonship there. So let's see, I have been careful to clarify my role in the atonement without either over or understating it. I'm also trying to do the same with yours. So, so we each have a role in the atonement, okay? And just because, Jesus is not trying to say, oh, my role was more important than yours, okay? Or some people's role in the atonement is more important than another person's role in the atonement. Because there's no differences in degree when we're talking about reality of the miracle. The miracle, there's no small miracle, big miracle. There's no difference. And so I've stressed that awe is not appropriate reaction to me because of our inherent equality. So, but later in the course, some of the steps have a more direct approach to God himself. And it would be unwise to start these steps without the preparation, or the awe will be confused with fear, and the experience will be more traumatic than beatific. So it looks like in this paragraph, it really is trying to make sure that we release the fear of God before we get too far into the course. Because a direct experience of revelation with God would be very traumatic otherwise. So healing is of God in the end. The means are being carefully explained to you. And the revelation may occasionally reveal the end to you, but to reach it, the means are needed. So the revelation is that experience of recognizing there's no separation at all with God. And so that's the end goal, okay? And so the revelation may reveal that end goal, but the means are still needed. So the healing of the mind needs to happen in order for to reach this experience of revelation. And so most of the course is centered on the healing of the mind and the practice of forgiveness, as a recognition that the atonement never happened. So every time we forgive, we're recognizing that what my brother did to me never happened, because the separation never happened. So it was all just my own misinterpretation, my own fantasy made up, based on my past associations and learnings, and that are not true. Okay. Okay, so anything else there? Any questions? Yeah,
A couple
Connie?
things.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that, okay, there's no separation between us and God, and yet there is awe. Seems like, is there a little gap there? I mean, if it's, yeah, I'm just kind of trying to reconcile that. Awe seems like, yeah, a little bit.
Well, I
Different.
think, yeah, I think the awe is being used to represent, see, it's a symbol, to represent what that experience of revelation, because remember that revelation cannot be put into words.
Right.
So I think the awe would be the complete what's the word, release of all perception.
Yeah.
So I mean, what's left if we release all perception?
Oh.
I mean, there's no words, right? You're like, nothing to say, nothing there.
Right, nothing to say.
And yet it's everything.
So the other thing is, it is a bit challenging to not think of God as, sort of a personal or worldly image because of all the references to Father throughout the book. And I don't know, God seems easier, or source or something, but when I see that word Father, it's just like, oh, he is this big fatherly type of figure, bigger than a regular father, but still that father image comes to mind.
Yes, because the word has a lot of associations. Okay, and
Yeah.
remember that associations are fantasy. So every single meaning that you have associated with Father, okay, is going to be that dense cloud that we were talking about over here.
Yeah, I understand all that. I'm just wondering why that word was used rather than just God throughout, or
well, because Father represents source, right? It's another word for source.
Well, why not Mother? Why not zebra. I mean, yeah, again, I know it's just a word, but it still has a lot of something to it.
Right, but remember that this is still very much in the language of the time and space, cultural norms. It's a symbol, so they're all symbols. Words are all symbols,
Yeah.
tries to remove from reality. So
Mhm.
it's not. It's almost like it's a universal curriculum, but it's not going to be for everyone, precisely because some people have a lot of problems with the language. The language itself is going to make it a no for them. They're
Yeah.
not going to be able to get into it precisely because of the language. Okay, so this course is not going to be for them. Okay, and that's okay. It's not saying that it's for everyone. It's not saying it has to come in a particular specific form. And so why this form? Well, why not this form? It's going to reach a certain number of people. It's not going to reach everybody. It's not supposed to reach everybody because it's coming in a book form, and all form is specific anyway. So if it had the word mother in there, that would have been great for you, Connie, but maybe other people would have had real problems with it. It's like, what the
Sure.
heck, mother.
Yeah,
Now,
no, I know. And I do go beyond that because that's how it works for me. But I'm just curious about that and curious how maybe Sonia and Teresa look beyond that personal kind of worldly image of father and how it is for you guys.
I mean, for me personally, I don't really have many associations to begin with that word. I mean, I've always
With
loved my
father.
dad, yes, with father, so I don't, but I also recognize that the course is written specifically to people. Well, what was I reading? It was specifically to correct the super ingrained Christianity like terms that people have been holding on to for who knows how many years. So from that perspective, I always just look at it as just a representation, like it's just a word. So, but I think it's a little easier for me just because I don't really have any associations personally with any kind of like Catholicism or Christianity or any of that. I never really paid attention to it, so that's just
I mean the
personally.
word father, not that does not really represent
Father.
Christianity. I'm speaking of just that particular.
Oh,
And we can discuss this offline if you'd prefer, whatever.
no, it's fine. I mean, the word father, just, I don't know, it's just father, my dad, a source. Um, I can't say that I have any strong.
she
I-
she's very clear that her dad is not God.
yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's yeah. Yeah. No, yeah.
Well, yeah, but okay, I guess maybe my question isn't really that clear, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, what does father mean, Connie, to you? How is it associated with God? Because of a worldly father is a worldly father. And granted that most fathers do literally believe that they are the creators of their children. That's what we were talking about earlier with the miracle impulse. Yeah. And they may literally act that way towards their children. You better obey me because I say so. I'm the final authority and the final word, and that's it.
Well, it looks like Teresa's moving on. Did you want to
Yeah.
have should throw any 2 cents in?
Sure. Well, I was raised Episcopalian, and I find a great deal of comfort in the use of the words Father and Son.
Mm.
So for me, it feels as though the Course in Miracles is moving me from my Christian background into a more intimate relationship with my philosophy of life or my spiritual beliefs. So for me, it's extremely comforting.
Mm.
Yeah, so it all depends on our past associations to the word,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah, because there's
Mhm.
still that meaning there.
Yeah, there's still this physical kind of thing that I have, still associating God as a body.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's the thing with me,
powerful.
is that from my point of view, I don't see Father God as a body.
Mm.
For me, Father God is a feeling,
Mm.
a spiritual sense. And the truth is, if I really look at that, it's not necessary, it's asexual. It could be a male or a female. It's just because of my religious background, it's okay with me that it's Father.
Mm. Mhm.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So I've never looked at Father as a feeling or a body.
Mm.
It was always just a knowing that I am cared for and protected, regardless of where I am. Or even when I was a small child, I could connect to that.
Mm.
Um, with being with or without my family. So I didn't ever really feel lonely too much. I know a lot of people feel lonely when they feel separate.
Mhm.
Let's see, I think when I really experienced maybe mild depression was when I was in college, and it didn't feel like God had abandoned me, but it felt like I was just disconnected from let's see, from feeling at home. So it just
Mm.
felt like I was not home, like I didn't belong here, like I didn't fit in, like I was an alien in the world.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can empathize with all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And so for me, the metaphor of coming home is always been a very, I don't know, it's always been there in the background. And I think that the sense of oneness is what to me is home.
Mhm. Well, thank you all for your input. It's really helpful for me because this is kind of a big hurdle for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the physical thing.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Okay, so that's the end of the section, and I believe that that's also, let's see. Yeah, that's the end of the chapter. So we'll start on
Ah,
chapter 2
cool.
next time.
Cool.
Okay.
That was great.
Yeah.
Fantasies. Wow.
Oh boy, yeah. We sure don't want to give those up.
Yeah. Let's go to Disneyland.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone. So we'll see you next time.
Thank
Thank
you.
Bye.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.